This is An Unconventional Life, a Jump Cut podcast talking to people that live outside the norm, the weirdos and freaks, the risk takers and visionaries. We explore the lives you know you want and the jobs you never knew existed. We ask our guests how they achieved their unconventional life and how they thrive without a scheduled 9 to 5. I'm Samuel Donner, and today on the show we talk to Pham, founder of Simple Pickup and Jump Cut. Kong has never been traditional. In his schooling and entrepreneurial ventures, he continuously breaks the molds set by the establishment. In this spirit, he ventures to disrupt one of the oldest institutions in America and the world: university education.
When I realized that I made $1 million, or that I had officially become a millionaire, I think the main feeling I had was overwhelming joy. And it's not because of $1 million, it's because I was able to look back on my experiences as a child, right? Growing up poor, my family living in Section 8 housing, not being able to afford all these things, and see where I got to now. So the $1 million was not like, oh, I'm rich, I can go buy whatever I want. It was more like a milestone that I surpassed that proved to me that I was able to jump through the hurdles that life threw at me and get past the moments where I felt really depressed. I was able to push through the times where I wanted to throw in the towel, and it was all worth it.
Kong discovered an entrepreneurial itch early on, and basically ever since he started talking, he's been convincing those around him to buy into his entrepreneurial vision. But this independence and drive was born out of necessity. Kong didn't have it easy growing up.
I grew up really poor. So my family lived in Section 8 housing. That means a lot of the rent was covered actually by the government because we were poor. My parents didn't make that much money. In terms of entrepreneurial endeavors, I started at a very young age. My parents couldn't afford anything for me. So while all these kids in school got like Razor scooters, N64, Sega Genesis.
Whatever the hot video game was at that time.
Yeah, whatever the hot thing was at the time, I couldn't get it, right? Because my parents, they couldn't buy it for me because they were just poor. And so I said, if my parents can't buy it for me, then why don't I go out and buy it for myself?
Kong knew that he had to go out and make his own money. But initially, he didn't know how. Soon enough, he had come up with a myriad of his own schemes and small businesses.
I had a lot of businesses, if you will, growing up. One of my first ones was actually selling bootleg CDs. The only way you could carry around music was a CD player. When CD burners just came out, I was using one of those illegal music downloading things. And so I was burning them CDs and selling them for like $5. Whereas if you bought it at the store, it'd be $20. And I obviously made it for about like 50 cents per CD. That was like my first business. I did everything from that to digging into the dumpsters near my house and selling stuff to my neighbors.
Wait, you went dumpster diving?
Yeah, I went dumpster diving.
Did you find any like amazing treasure or trash?
No, so
so not a very profitable business.
Well, it was still profitable because what I learned at a young age is that people care about stories. Think about what you buy when you buy Gucci or when you buy Louis Vuitton. You're not buying it for the materials. You're buying it for the story. The story that when you have this, you've achieved some sort of status. And so I learned that at a very young age because I went dumpster diving and I found these like semi-decent looking like trophies or something like that people would throw away, right? I made up kind of stories about these items, and because of that, people bought them. It was a good lesson because it taught me that material things could be valuable for sure, but the story you tell behind these material things are much more important.
While Kong was following his entrepreneurial instincts and learning to tell his own stories, his parents were telling him a different story. Kong would be a doctor, and he was going to love it. For a while, he believed them.
I actually wanted to be a doctor pretty much my whole life because my parents told me to do that, essentially. They're like, you have to be a doctor. This is going to be the best profession ever. I think as I started to get closer and closer to college, I really had to make that decision in my mind of, do I actually want to be a doctor? I thought about it and realized, one, I love learning, and I love learning about sciences, but I don't like most of it. Number two was the payoff is just incredibly terrible. You go through undergrad, you go through medical school, you have to become a resident where you get paid jack shit. After that, you can be paid, $200,000, $300,000 a year, whatever the going rate was at the time. The economics just didn't really work out. So that was the logical side of things. The emotional side of things, I really felt like I wanted to be an entrepreneur.
For the longest time, Kong didn't know that entrepreneurship was even on the table. He was at a completely different table, where the only option sitting in front of him wore a white coat and a stethoscope. But then in high school, entrepreneurship finally came on the scene.
That idea of an entrepreneur was only introduced to me probably around junior year of high school. One of the most fun projects I've ever created in my life is in Intro to Business, where our final was create a product and then work with your team to like write out a business plan, right? How are you going to take it to market? How are you going to market it? Obviously, the whole thing was fake, but it was really, really fun. We created this thing called a knife fork. It was a mix between a knife and a fork. So we did a whole thing on that. It was super, super fun. By the way, fast forward like 10 years later, I see a CNBC special on this guy that created the Nork, and he becomes a millionaire.
He stole your idea.
Yeah,
he was sitting in on that conversation.
Exactly. The story in my head is that he sat in on the presentations on finals day, and he stole my idea. But anyway, that project got me to really see the fun in creating your own company and creating your own product. Everything that I learned, everything that I participated in, I fell in love with. And so I said, I think this is the course for me. I need to be an entrepreneur.
Kong had applied to a bunch of colleges for medicine and business, but realized that he wanted to pursue his passion for entrepreneurship.
I got into a couple of schools that were decent medical schools or like pre-med schools, and I decided not to go to those schools and instead go to this no-name school called Cal State Fullerton because I heard they had a good business program, specifically a good entrepreneurship program. So that was the next step for me. I said, I'm going to go to college and I'm going to learn all these skills about business.
And when Kong came to business school, all his expectations were exceeded, and he massively expanded his knowledge about the business world. Did the business school teach you everything you needed to know about entrepreneurship?
No, it was the most horrible thing in the world.
Just kidding. Business school sucked.
First year goes by, I'm learning general education classes. Second year goes by, I'm still learning general education classes. Maybe some business classes sprinkled in, and I'm like, you know what? Third year is where I take the business classes. Third year is like where it all happens and the magic comes together. I'm going to be the smartest person in the world when it comes to business skills. Fast forward to the third year, yes, I took a ton of business classes, but they were all these high-level courses that didn't really teach you anything about the real world. It was very theoretical. At one point, I said, this is just not working out at all, and I think I'm going to just start my own business. I think I dropped out a total of 3 times. That's including the last one that was successful.
So what did each of those little dropouts look like, and what was the reason behind them? Reason for dropout 1, hating school, etc.
The first one was pretty stupid. I dropped out because I was like, I hate school. I don't want to pay for this. I'm going to figure out what I want to do. I tried a few things. I tried to sell t-shirts. I tried to sell textbooks too. It's moderate success, but nothing that really took off. I was like, I can't really do this full time. So I had to go back to school.
Reason for dropout 2, a semi-pro poker career.
The second time was actually pretty good. So the second time I dropped out was because I was playing poker.
Wait, poker?
Yeah, so I was playing poker semi-pro.
Wait, how does one get into a semi-pro poker league from school?
I love to play poker with my friends, and this led into me being really, really obsessed with the game because that's how my brain works. I get really obsessive about numbers and mathematics.
And that's also how you take money from your friends.
Exactly. Well, I lost a lot of money at first. The whole thing is just all numbers, all statistics. And once you realize that, you start to understand the fundamentals of the game and how to actually utilize these truths of statistics to take advantage of other players. That sounds really bad, but that's a game. You got to take other people's money.
Now, Kong wasn't learning poker from his business school professors. He found that through the internet, not only could he learn whatever he wanted, he could learn it faster and more comprehensively.
So there was a forum at the time, it's called 2+2 forums. It was a really big community of people who really wanted to accelerate their game. So I think 2+2 kind of got your foot in the door. I think the really in-depth analyses came from membership websites. So there was one called Card Runners. It was put on by top pro players, and I learned a lot from them. I learned a lot about the mathematics of the game, and from that I was able to, for lack of a better word, exploit other players and make money off of poker.
Discovering that must have been incredible because you were so bogged down by the conventional way to learn, and you were taking all these bullshit classes, and finally you find a medium through the internet that really allows you to explore information in the way that you see fit.
That's exactly it. The way I think about it is there was 2 sides of it. One was this practical side of, hey, here's how you play poker really well. Here's how you win at poker and actually make money for yourself. And then on the other side, it teaches you how to think. Learning how to play poker well has really shaped the way that I think to this day. It shapes the way that I make decisions to this day. That's kind of like the deeper layer, is that you not only learn how to play the game, but you learn how to think. You learn how to make decisions.
Poker wasn't all fun and games. Kong was making some serious money.
net, I probably made around like 80 to 100K.
That's a lot for a college student.
Yeah, exactly. But with that said, toward the end of my semi-pro career, I had really bad bankroll management.
What does that mean?
That means everything that I won, I would cash out and then I would spend the money, right? So I had no financial discipline because nobody taught me this stuff. With poker, there's swings. Sometimes you win, sometimes you lose, but on average, if you're a good player, you're going to be positive and you're going to keep building up that bankroll. But the idea here is that you have to keep a certain amount in your bank so that you can take those swings. And I didn't do that. And there was a lot of times where it's like I went down to zero because I cashed everything out and spent it. And then now it's like, fuck, now I got to go work at Starbucks for a few more shifts to put more money in here because I spent it on some stupid jacket or something like that.
But at the peak of Kong's impulsive jacket buying, a whole slew of poker sites were getting shut down.
The US basically passed this law. They called it Black Friday, where on this one Friday, they randomly said all poker sites are not able to, you can't play on it anymore, or you can't deposit money into it anymore. So a ton of poker players just left the scene. And on top of that, the players that were left over were the ones that were really good. So at one point, I just couldn't make that much of a profit anymore. And I was starting to lose money, basically.
His poker prospects disappearing and losing money quickly, Kong returned to business school. But he was returning with purpose. He was hungry to create his own business.
I really wanted to drop out, and I continued to think about businesses that I could start. But because I didn't have that idea yet, I decided to stay in school because that was a good safety net at the time.
Back in school, Kong got to work trying to find a business opportunity that was just good enough that he could drop out. Luckily, he wasn't alone this time. He made a friend that would soon become his co-founder, Jesse.
We met on an online forum where guys basically shared tips on how to get more dates. On one end, it was like, yeah, I couldn't get dates. But on a deeper level, I didn't have friends. All of freshman year in college, I literally had made 3 friends on Facebook. And that's because we were in the same group together. I was a very introverted person. I'm very different now. But back then, like, I couldn't talk to a stranger if my life depended on it. I went into this forum with the surface level goal of, yeah, I want more dates and I eventually want this connection with a woman. But on a deeper level, I just wanted to get better with my social skills. I wanted to be able to connect with people in general.
How did you guys actually meet on this forum?
It was kind of creepy, to be honest. We're just like, hey, you want to meet in person and like discuss tactics and stuff?
Tactics.
Yeah, it was really creepy, but it turned out well.
Were you nervous about meeting up with someone?
Oh yeah, totally. I thought this was going to be some weirdo that's going to like eventually kill me or something like that.
How long did that feeling take to wear off?
Honestly, after I met him, it was pretty smooth sailing. We got along really well. Like me, Jesse was also in it to be more social as a person, right? He didn't have that many friends either, and it was hard for him to connect with people. We both went on this journey to go out and talk to strangers, go out to join clubs on campus, make friends, and it was really hard for us at first. At the beginning, it was very formulaic, like you got to say these things to connect, and you got to like make sure that they think you're cool and dress like this. But eventually, we just figured out that you just got to not give a shit. And once you stop giving a shit about what people think, that's when people want to hang out with you most.
How quickly did it change from being something that like you had to force yourself to do to something that you wanted to do?
Like 6 years.
6 years. Really? That's a long time.
I would say at least 4. First 4 years, it was just like, hey, let's like actually go out and talk to strangers. And it wasn't just like we're picking up girls at the bar, although we definitely did that. It was like, hey, go talk to guys too. Go talk to this person over there. Go talk to that couple over there. Go talk to that old woman over there. We were trying to recalibrate our brains to accept that this type of socialization was okay.
While Kong and Jesse were on the road to personal development and improvement, they were also looking for business opportunities.
So at the time, we both hated school and we decided, let's try to start businesses together. We had like a whiteboard full of ideas that went on for essentially 2 years. Again,
2 years, wow.
Yeah, we tried some of those ideas.
But none of those ideas worked. The idea that eventually bore fruit and propelled them into success was just around the corner. But the seeds of that idea would be planted over a year earlier. It all started with a school project.
I made this mini documentary for my Asian American Studies class about how Asian men are seen as kind of passive and asexual and the opposite of what a typical quote unquote man traditionally is seen as, and how that affects dating for Asian men. I put it onto YouTube. not thinking anything of it. And about a year later, this is kind of like a little bit deep into our business brainstorming phase, I saw that it had 60,000 views.
60,000 views?
Yeah. Like,
That's a lot.
And I didn't do anything.
That's a lot.
Yeah, that was a pretty decent amount, especially for doing nothing. So I said, okay, well, if that can get 60,000 views, then for sure we can probably get more by just doing something that's more intentional. And that's when we kind of started playing around with the idea of maybe we should start a YouTube channel.
Realizing that they could actually make money on YouTube, Kong and Jesse started thinking of a theme to base their channel around. They had a bunch of different ideas.
A finance channel, a health channel. Yeah, I don't remember all the ideas, but there were probably like 20 that we were seriously considering.
But eventually they realized that
we wanted to be in the dating niche, so we called it Simple Pickup. We landed on that because one of the things that you want to do is be controversial, right? Be surprising. One of the most controversial things that you can do is dating. There was a huge viral video at that time called "Can Guys and Girls Be Just Friends?" It was like a horrible interview, but it got like millions of views. Yeah. And so we just saw stuff like that, and we realized, man, this is probably a really big niche that we can hit on.
Hit on, pun intended.
Yeah. So we started a whole channel based on that.
With the right theme and a great name, all Kong had to do now was execute. He needed to make engaging content that could go viral. So he got to work, and after hours of brainstorming, filming, and editing, they had their first video. And it was terrible.
It started out with us trying to get girls' phone numbers with silly challenges.
What was one of those like first silly challenges?
We had a really shitty video at first. We would try to get phone numbers with like floss in our teeth. It just turned out really poorly because a lot of times the people that we talked to couldn't even see the floss. So the whole thing just didn't even work out that well. So yeah, there were a lot of failed ideas before we hit a big one.
But they didn't give up and kept trying. And eventually they struck viral gold.
We used StarCraft memes. StarCraft 2 just came out at the time, and there were a lot of memes around that game. And so we would use kind of these catchphrases from StarCraft, like "Carrier has arrived," and then we would use them as pickup lines. There was a really popular forum at the time. I think it's still pretty popular on bodybuilding.com. It's called MISC. It's just like a shit show of a forum where people just post like random shit. And we posted on there because a lot of those people were in the meme culture, I guess. And we decided to appeal to them by saying, hey, check it out. We used memes. A lot of them you guys have used in this particular forum, and we created a whole video out of it. We also went to the StarCraft subreddit. We spammed a bunch of StarCraft forums, spammed a bunch of StarCraft Facebook groups, and just got as many eyeballs on it as possible. And because the content was actually good, because it was actually funny, people actually shared it. It started getting covered on gaming blogs and some other big websites as well. It just kind of snowballed into like this huge video.
So you're getting like press coverage and all that too.
Yeah, essentially. It was all just free views, right? And we're obviously getting paid from these views from YouTube. So I think that video at that time, like in the first week, got about 1.5 million views.
1.5 million views.
Yeah,
That's insane.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy.
And like so quickly after you guys started too.
Well, it's so quickly because you didn't see the failed videos. It was our first huge viral video because at that time, as I mentioned, these StarCraft memes were huge. They were already going viral on their own as images. And now these guys come out with a video where they're using it as pickup lines. The internet just kind of went crazy, at least in that kind of gaming world.
That brings us to Dropout 3, Simple Pickup.
So we had that success literally right when the summer hit. Once that summer was over, we had made multiple viral hits already, and we said, fuck it, I'm not going back to school anymore. Why would I pay tens of thousands of dollars when I'm already making money here and I can turn this into a business?
Was it an easy decision to make?
It was really easy because we already had traction and we were already making some money. It wasn't like a lot split between us. We were probably making like a couple hundred per month, but it was easy because we said, this is something that's fun to do. We're actually passionate about it and there's traction, right? Like we can see where this will go.
Especially hearing about how your parents were just like, you should be like a doctor for so long. Were they thrilled about this decision to drop out?
My parents weren't thrilled about the decision. They actually didn't even know about it until like much later. For a while, they didn't even know what I did. I just said I make YouTube videos, and they were like, "What's YouTube?"
When Kong decided to take the leap and drop out, he didn't have too many people that were supportive. His friends and family either didn't understand what was going on or thought that Kong didn't have what it takes to stand out amongst the millions of other channels vying for attention and views. Especially in the early days of YouTube, this was not seen as a career because there were people making money, but it's not like it is today where you have people making like hand over fist. So was there any advice that you got in the early days of starting this up?
So a lot of our friends watched YouTube too. They're saying this exact same thing as you're saying now, which is there's too much competition. Everybody's trying to get attention. There's no way that you guys can cut through the noise, right? So I would say that was like the worst advice we got. We almost didn't start because of that, because it's discouraging when everybody around you says like, don't do it. It's not worth it. You're not going to make money. There's too much competition and all that stuff. So it's really discouraging when like all your friends who you respect say it's not a good idea.
Did that StarCraft meme video feel like a validation that you were going into the right direction?
Yeah, absolutely.
And after that, did your friends like start to support you a bit more?
I would say about half of them did and said, wow, we were wrong. You did it. Others were a little bit more jealous. They didn't want to accept the fact that either they were wrong or that we're succeeding or, we're moving faster than them. Whatever their excuse was, they kind of started acting really weird toward me. Those people I just cut out of my life. When you are growing as a person and the people you've grown up with see you grow faster than them, a lot of weird feelings arise. Your good friends are going to be supportive and say, I accept this weird feeling, but I'm very happy for you. The negative ones, they're going to try to pull you back down. They're going to say, no, if I can't succeed, you can't succeed either. And they're either going to verbally try to pull you back down or professionally try to pull you back down as well. Whenever that happens, I always say, just cut those people out of your life. And that's what I had to do.
With some dead weight off his shoulders, Kong persevered and pushed forward. He had proven that he could make consistent viral hits, but he needed to find a way to turn those views into real money.
The first year, even though we had a ton of viral videos, we were only making, as I mentioned, a few $100s per month each. And we were living out of Jesse's mom's house and at one point like a really shitty apartment in like what I call the asshole of LA. We had to learn along the way. It wasn't easy right from the get-go. The biggest misconception about YouTube is you just make videos, you get a ton of views and you make money. That's not true at all. If you get 1 million views per month, right, which is pretty hard to do, you're making on average $1,000 per month. It's a pretty hard game to play if you just rely on YouTube's ad revenue. However, the smart entrepreneurs will not just go viral on YouTube, they're going to build a business around this brand that they've created. So that's kind of what we did. We were able to sell premium content. We said, hey, look, we have behind the scenes stuff that you can pay for. We have merchandise that you can buy. We sold t-shirts. We reached out to brands like Loot Crate and FanDuel and said, hey, do you want to do a brand integration with us? We'll do a whole video that promotes you. And they paid us a lot more for that. So you do all of these different things that bring in revenue on top of the YouTube ad revenue. It took about 3-4 years for us to like hit our peak. That was when we were making about $2 million a year, 80% of that being profit. But it took a long time, right? Like if I could do it over, I would probably be able to get all the way there within like 6 months. But because we didn't have any mentorship at the time or anything like Viral Academy at the time, we had to figure it out on our own, and it took us years to do that.
And after a few years of successfully and profitably running Simple Pickup, Kong had achieved an incredible feat. He was a millionaire at 24.
When I realized that I made $1 million or that I had officially become a millionaire, I think the main feeling I had was overwhelming joy. And it's not because of the $1 million. It's because I was able to look back on my experiences as a child, right? Growing up poor, my family living in Section 8 housing, not being able to afford all these things, and see where I got to now. So the $1 million was not like, oh, I'm rich, I can go buy whatever I want. It was more like a milestone that I surpassed that proved to me that I was able to jump through the hurdles that life threw at me and get past the moments where I felt really depressed. I was able to push through the times where I wanted to throw in the towel, and it was all worth it.
It really was all worth it. Not only was Simple Pickup a success, but Kong had started a bunch of other channels. Hacks of Life, Drunk Tech Review, The Human Experiment, The Random Altruist. Essentially, Kong was creating BuzzFeed before BuzzFeed was a thing. But he had also been working on this kind of content for a while. So he took a step back and asked himself, is this it?
On a scale of 1 through 10, I was a 10 out of 10. I was hanging out with my friends, doing what I love, making funny videos. People on the street were shaking my hand saying, hey, you changed my outlook on life. Some people were emailing in saying I was depressed and you turned my life around. It was very, very meaningful. But I think as an entrepreneur, you always want more. When you think about what more can you get, a lot of people tend to think about money. Like, how can I make more money? That's not really the way that I want to live my life. For me, Doing more just meant more impact. That's the reason I wanted to start Simple Pickup in the first place. Sure, we were making people laugh and sure, it was funny and all this stuff. But at the end of the day, we wanted to help other people who were in our position get over social anxiety, get over this fear of like talking to people and making friends and building connections. At one point, I felt that we had done all that we could. And it was kind of like this continuous cycle of doing the same thing over and over
diminishing
again.
returns.
Yeah, exactly. I wanted more, right? And more for me wasn't money, it was impact. What can I do next to have more impact on the world? I wanted to do something that was actually going to change society in a positive way. And so I went on a 6-month research journey while still doing things for Simple Pickup. And I settled on the world of education because I saw that education is just completely broken. Like for me, I went to college, paid tens of thousands of dollars, was $50,000 in debt, but learned nothing about business. That's fucked up. If you're paying that much money and you come out of it not knowing anything about the world of business, something is wrong in that system. And so I wanted to fix that. But then also on top of that, there were these new companies coming out doing online education where you could watch courses for free or maybe for a price. I saw that and said, this is just so poorly created.
Wait, why was it poorly created?
It's just really boring. It's just so boring. The best example I have is I watched a course on After Effects. For those that don't know, After Effects is essentially the software where you can do special effects. You can make fireballs come out of your hand and blow up a building. There's a guy teaching After Effects and somehow he managed to make that course boring. Like you can do all these special effects, but you're teaching me like the most boring shit. Coming from the world of viral videos, I said, I can probably do this better. And we started Jump Cut to try to change the world of education.
So with a vision of the future of education in mind, Kong took action to transition from Simple Pickup to Jump Cut.
The first thing we did was bring on a co-founder. In my years of operating Simple Pickup as a business, I've realized my weaknesses. And one of my big weaknesses is just organization and process. I'm very good at big picture ideas. I'm very good at being creative and executing that, but I'm very, very terrible at organization and just setting up processes, which is very crucial if you want to have a huge impact on the world. So we brought in a co-founder. His name's Peter, complete opposite of me, graduated from Yale, went to work at Bain & Company as a business consultant for 2 years and eventually joined Jump Cut. The second thing was, it was hard at first. We weren't making any money, so we were actually funding Jump Cut through Simple Pickup. For a long time, I didn't take a salary. Neither did Jesse or Peter because we wanted to just make this new idea work.
Why did you believe in this so much?
That's a good question. And the answer is, I don't know. It's not really that I believed in it. It's more so that I just wanted to do it. This was my vision for the change I wanted to see in the world. And I wanted it done so bad that I was just going to make it work no matter what. So it's not that I believed in it. I believed that it just needs to happen.
In trying to make Jump Cut a reality, Kong went through a lot of ideas.
There were a lot of iterations of Jump Cut. At the very beginning, we were building a platform for creators to make more revenue. Think about like Patreon or maybe like a Teachable or Udemy where people can sell courses, something like that. And we played around with a few ideas. In the end, we decided, hey, why don't we just make our own course teaching people how to become creators and make money? And that's how we were going to help creators make money. That kind of spiraled into this idea of being like this school for entrepreneurs. And we were really excited about that idea. So excited that we said, look, we know what we want to do. We need to raise funding to move even faster. And so that's when we went through Y Combinator, which is an accelerator for startups. And we got paired up with a lot of good mentors, met a lot of smart people who helped us along the way and still helps us to this day. And at the end of that 3-month program, we were able to pitch to a room of like 800 investors.
800 investors?
Yeah.
800?
Well, the room was like 200 investors, and then there were 500 investors watching online.
That's insane.
So essentially 800 investors.
That's a crazy opportunity for such a young startup.
It really was. It was crazy.
Were you scared? 800 people that are literally judging whether or not your dream gets made. I would have been terrified.
Yeah, it was pretty nerve-wracking, but the mentors really help you through like preparing for it, helping you through your slides, helping you through your presentation. By the time that demo day came around, we were pretty well prepared. I was still nervous nonetheless, almost shit my pants. I was as prepared as I could be.
Kong and the team put in countless hours of work to get through Y Combinator and pitch to these investors. But the work did not stop there.
We had back-to-back meetings. Each meeting was about an hour for literally 4 weeks straight. This is literally 8 hours a day for 4 weeks, and then another like on and off 2 weeks after that.
How do you have the stamina to do many meetings?
It was brutal, man. Honestly, I love being an entrepreneur, but when it comes to fundraising, that is when I am closest to wanting to kill myself.
Oh my God. What makes it so hard?
It's not that it's hard, it's that it's just draining. Because you're answering the same exact questions over and over again. What's your business model? How are you defensible? Who are your competitors?
It's like almost like everyone's saying how you can fail for
Yeah. And then
8 hours a day.
So it's repetitive. I generally just hate repetitive things. And then number two is that a lot of them would end up saying, no, I don't believe in your mission. I don't believe that you're going to be successful, right? So you're getting a lot of rejections. Out of the 100 and something investors we met, we only got about 15 that invested in us. We had a lot of meetings where people spent an hour, questioned us on all of our business, and then said, nope, don't believe in you. You suck.
Even though Kong went through a ton of rejection, he still got 15 people to believe in his vision and his company. That was just enough to get started and move forward. Initially, they leveraged their audience from Simple Pickup to Jumpstart JumpCut. And quickly, they saw that people actually loved what they were creating.
The metric of success at first was completion rates. How many people actually watch the whole course? So the industry standard is about 10. Most people, 10% of people. 10% of people who start an online course will actually finish it. We were able to get it up to about 65, 70%.
7 times?
Yeah.
Jesus.
But here's the thing though, right? The course was teaching people how to create a YouTube channel. What we found is that we surveyed all these people who finished it and we asked, have you created your YouTube channel? Out of the 70% of people who actually watched it, only 10% said they had created the YouTube channel. There's an issue here, right? Like people are watching it, but they're not actually getting success. So now what we're focusing on is how do we actually get more people to finish the assignments? And then eventually, how do we get them to continue working on this even after they finish the assignments that we give them? Because this is not something that, you go through the course and then boom, you're a superstar. This is something that we teach you the fundamentals, we push you in the right direction, but it's up to you to get to the finish line. These are all the things that we still haven't figured out perfectly to this day. We've drastically increased the number of people who finish the assignments. We put people in cohorts and get them to, keep each other accountable. We have a good community where people can ask questions. We're building now a lot of features that pave the road to success for people.
Kong wants to continuously improve JumpCut. Yes, JumpCut is adding value to people's lives, even today. But as he works towards his vision for the future, JumpCut won't just change the lives of individuals. It will shift the culture.
So first, I think you have to zoom out a little bit and think about how education is going to look 20 years from now. The trends that you're seeing right now is that application rates for the Ivy Leagues, like Stanford and Harvard and Yale, they're going up. All the other schools, applications are going down. People are trusting colleges less and less. I think what you're going to see in 10, 20 years from now is this bifurcation of colleges where all of your Ivy Leagues, all of your top tier colleges, they're going to say exactly the same because their status and their brand is too valuable. They're going to say exactly the same. All these other colleges, like your state schools, your community colleges, they're just going to get replaced by something that's cheaper and more efficient because right now they don't really teach you anything. Their degree doesn't really mean much, right? So they're just going to get replaced by something. And so that's where JumpCut comes in. We want to be the school to replace these third tier colleges and below and actually teach people things that are relevant in the real world, but it's also affordable as well. We want to build a school for entrepreneurs. That sounds very easy, but it's actually very complicated. So right now we're only working on level 1, which is creating the courses that gets people in the door, that teaches people kind of the foundation. But then you also got to consider some people will be able to succeed just from the courses, but then a lot of people need one-on-one mentorship, right? They need some guidance. They get stuck at specific areas. That's why, in classes you might have a TA, or for us, where we're trying to introduce this idea of community moderators to help people get unstuck. Then you have the people who continue doing it and need personalized mentorship. They need personalized help. So it's like, hey, I have some success, but how do I apply these things to my specific situation right now? So to me, it's very, very obvious because I've done this for a very long time, but for somebody who's just starting out, they need that guidance. So how do we offer that at a very affordable price? And then at the very top end of it, it's people who are already making, $50,000 a year, $100,000 a year, making their own channel or starting their own business. But they say, hey, I want to get to $500,000 a year. I want to get to $1 million a year. How do we support them in getting them to the next level? The way that I see our quote unquote school is this verticalized version of a school, which is you start with all these courses, and as they progress and as they continue on their journey, you give them more and more personalized help. We know what to do. The question now becomes, how do you actually turn that into a scalable business model? That's, I think, the hard part.
But it seems like you're well on your way towards that.
Yeah, it's a hard problem to solve, but I think we're on the way to doing it, and we're just going to take things one step at a time.
As Kong walks along this path to improve education, he's getting more and more excited about the possibilities. Kong's vision for what the future should be is incredibly impactful, and he gets to witness the direct improvement in people's lives that stems from the platform he built.
For the future of education, I'm really excited about getting people out of student debt. We're in a bubble right now. Student debt is just a really, really fucked up situation. This is the only kind of debt that you can't write off. Like, if you go bankrupt, you're still in student debt. If you die, your parents or your children incur that debt, right?
Wait, seriously?
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Seriously. You cannot get rid of this debt. So the system is inherently just fucked. What I'm most excited about is getting rid of this entire system and creating an educational environment where people can actually learn the skills that they need and thrive in the real world. And right now, college is just not providing that for people. In terms of jump cut, I think I have a pretty selfish reason that's coming to mind right now. I just love surrounding myself with smart people, seeing people start their businesses and helping them turn it into something really big. And eventually that business helps other people as well. It's just a very fulfilling feeling. It's very satisfying, right? And I'm very grateful to be a part of that because I get to hang out with these people, pick their mind on things, share my knowledge, and in turn, they help other people as well. So what I'm excited about with Jump Cut is just being able to facilitate an environment for these entrepreneurs to grow. And then the selfish side of me is like, I just want to surround myself with these smart people so that we can have really great conversations and continue to do great things together.
Kong wants to help people grow, and he has some advice for those people that want to quit their 9-to-5 to start working on their true passion. I think there's a lot of people, even people listening right now, that have an idea of something that they want to do, something entrepreneurial, something that they've always thought about, but they're reticent to quit their 9-to-5 and start the project that they've always wanted to. They're worried of failure, or worried that it's not going to be good enough, or just worried of even trying. What do you tell to that person that wants to try but hasn't?
I think I'll relate it back to my personal experience. A lot of people ask me, what would I do differently if I could go back in time? What I would do differently is just start sooner, right? Like, I would have started freshman year trying to start my own business. So the fact of the matter is, you're going to fail for sure. You know, whether you start your YouTube channel and put out your first few videos and those bomb, or you start your business selling textbooks like I did, it's going to bomb. It's going to for sure bomb. But the benefit of this is that every single time you fail, you learn. If it wasn't for all these things that I failed at prior to me creating my YouTube channel, I wouldn't have been as successful. My advice to people is always start early. Don't be afraid to fail, because that failure is actually going to help you in the long run.
That was Pham, founder of Simple Pickup and Jump Cut. His movement towards redefining the way we educate ourselves inspired me. I empathized with his dissatisfaction of his business school education because it is something that I felt my entire engineering education at UCLA. Constantly, I felt I was learning more from Khan Academy and YouTube than my professors. I saw myself paying for a piece of paper and not for the opportunity to learn anything. Today's universities reflect an ancient world where information was sequestered and centralized at universities. Back in the 50s, university was one of the only places that you could source information from the brightest minds and expose yourself to ideologies around the world. Now, you can get that same level of interaction and exposure by connecting to the nearest Wi-Fi hotspot. Kong is building the future of education. And I say, it's about damn time. If you like this episode and want to hear more, give us feedback or ask a question, go to jumpcut.com/an unconventional life. See you soon.